Edgar Cayce. Symbols and the Self. By Violet Shelley. Part 5. The Symbol-Minded Self. Symbols and the Self. Contents. Symbols, signposts to insight. Symbols as key. Aura charts as records. Life seals as reminders. The symbol-minded self. 5. The symbol-minded self. The need for clearer communication has been highly stressed in recent years, communication with others and communication with one's higher self. Symbols have been used in the communication of ideas since the dawn of time. Symbols exemplify a way of saying something fast, simply, and memorably. Symbols fall into many categories, from the graphic symbols with their inherent economy of form to the more elaborate symbols in mythology and allegory with their great archetypal power. Common to all symbolism, however, is the concept of analogy between the visible and the invisible world. As above, so below, was echoed by Goethe. What is within is also without. Our minds are symbolific, in that they are making symbols all the time, ticking away like continuous, invisible, automatic tape recorders. The brain actively translates experience into symbols out of a basic need to do so, and stores those experiences and their attendant emotions as symbols in the unconscious mind. This is why our dreams are often hard for us to understand. Ideas, impressions, and guidance are fed back to us in the symbolic language we have created. Because each of us has in dreams his individual collection of personal symbols mixed with universal and conventional symbols, the ordinary dream dictionary is unreliable in dream interpretation. Each of us, to understand our dreams, must make a personal dream dictionary. To do this, it is necessary to list every person, place, thing, attitude, and emotion in a dream, deciding from our own experience what each means to us. Only then can we decode our own symbolic language. Looking at Goethe's remark briefly paraphrased as within, so without, we might find it equally true to transpose it to, as without, so within. If we want to know what is going on within ourselves, we need only to look at what is going on outside ourselves. The Cayce readings went so far as to suggest that if we want to know how we stand with our God, we need only to look at how we stand with our brother. Scriptures, myths, and fairy tales are filled with symbols of the outer world, the world of nature, which can be translated to processes in the inner world. To understand their meanings, one must look for the analogies. In this way we can begin to see that high places, the mountain top, for instance, may well symbolize heightened consciousness. The rocky road up the mountain, the dangers and difficulties faced by the pilgrim, represent the obstacles in our own spiritual journey. Finding the similarities between the outer object and the inner meaning is the key to unlocking the message, and one often has multiple choices. In dreams, the dreamer's feelings and emotions provide the key. In scriptures, myths, and fairy tales, the position or relationship to the hero, heroine, or actor provides the key. The story of man's origin and destiny has been preserved in symbols taken from the world around us and from man's experience in it. It is the story of the reality of the self as a spiritual being, a true son of God. This is the story of the prodigal son, the epic of the wanderings of Ulysses, the numerous tales of pilgrims and of deposed princes struggling to regain their rightful kingdoms. Each symbolic tale is variously embellished with other symbols which, though they seemingly refer to the outer world, are actually reflective of man's inner nature. The more ideas that can be attached to a symbol, the more highly charged and evocative it becomes. In the same way, powerful and important ideas are represented by a great many different symbols. Linking similarities are there, even if not immediately apparent. Symbols also have both negative and positive meanings. The four ancient elements were considered to be fire, earth, air, and water. Of these four elements, all life was said to be composed, and to some extent nature symbols can be separated into these categories. Fire and air are regarded as active and male. Water and earth are regarded as passive and female. Fire is a symbol of transformation and regeneration. It denotes the energy of the spirit, which may be used as either animal passion or as spiritual strength, therefore being either destructive or purifying. The sun and all the symbolism pertaining to it originated from associations with this original element, fire. The sun, with its power to put an end to darkness, was often regarded as the sustainer of life, if not the source of life, and Christ as the sun of the world. Closely connected with this symbolism are the star, the torch, bonfires, lightning, the flame of the candle. The alchemist held the notion that fire is the agent of transmutation. The altar, most probably, is a holdover of the symbolism of the burning away of the drosses, or the burning away of the animal passions. Determining the meaning of the symbol is dependent on examining its function. The sun has symbols evolving from it which are much too numerous to mention. Flowers which open to the sun are sun symbols: the lotus, the rose, the lily. The layers of petals represent consciousness around the golden mystic center. Gold itself is a symbol of the sun. The phoenix is another. It was said that when this mythical bird was burned to death by the sun's rays, another phoenix would rise from its ashes. The phoenix symbolizes periodic destruction and recreation. The wheel is a solar symbol, as is the scarab, the beetle which in Egyptian mythology pushed the sun across the sky. The rising sun is the symbol of the rising of man's consciousness, and facing the east represents man's desire to accomplish this. Earth, the second of the ancient elements, is symbolic of the material plane. This is the far country, in which the prodigal son wanders. It is man's conscious mind, created by him as a diversion. It is symbolized by all the things associated with the earth and soil, animals, gardens which man tills and sows, land which is either barren and rocky or fertile and productive. It is the field in which a treasure lies buried, the treasure being the knowledge of man's own divinity. His consciousness is often symbolized by the contour of the terrain. He may be climbing a path upward in consciousness, or his actions and attitudes may be making him slide downward. Climbing the upward path and climbing a ladder, a stairway, or riding an elevator upward follow this idea. The animals that live on the earth symbolize the various animal passions of man, and whether the hero overcomes or is overcome by them tells the story of his mastery. Bullfighting is a remnant of this symbolism acted out. The stone, the rock, and the cave are also symbols of the earth. The body of man himself is of the earth. The divine spirit dwells in the physical body in the earth plane, and the body is therefore the house or the temple of the divine. The body is also the vehicle in which the spirit moves about while manifest, and it can therefore be symbolized by other vehicles, such as an automobile. The earth, or the world, is represented by anything that suggests temptation, whether it be sirens who would lure sailors to wreck their ship, the shady lady who would entice the innocent country boy, the glamours of the city, the enticement of riches, beauty, or power, or anything that would entrap and delay the pilgrim or homebound spirit. In some of the old allegories, the hero is given glasses of illusion, which keep him from seeing things as they really are, and in fairy tales spells are cast. In our own lives, our desires lead us astray and sidetrack us from our true purpose. The third element, air, is generally considered to be the primary element. It is related to the creative breath of life, and hence to speech. In the beginning was the Word. Nietzsche held that air was a kind of higher, subtler matter, the very stuff of human freedom. The feather, which floats on air and is associated with the birds of the air, symbolizes the lightness and freedom of the creative spirit. It is associated with the higher mind, with elevated consciousness, and is seen used in Indian headdresses and in the plumes on knights' helmets. Feather quills, once used for writing, symbolize the power of the written word. Wings suggest not only the protectiveness of the spirit, but also the power of movement. Wings symbolize spirituality, imagination, thought. The Greeks portrayed love and victory as winged figures, and thereafter Plato considered wings to be symbolic of intelligence. Wings appearing on creatures where they do not normally belong suggest sublimation of the symbolic qualities ascribed to those animals. Appearing on the caduceus and on heroes' helmets, they emphasize spiritual qualities. Wings on night animals, such as the bat, symbolize the dark side of the imagination. The fourth element, water, limitless and immortal, is considered the beginning and end of all things on earth. The concept in general stands for all liquid matter. It is considered to be the symbol of the non-formal, dynamic, motivating, feminine side of the personality. There is a close correlation with the moon, which affects the tides. Water is associated with intuition and with the emotional nature. It is important to notice, when water appears as a symbol, the kind of water specified. Some examples are clear water, spring water, running water, stagnant water, dead water, fresh and salt water, reflecting water, purifying water, deep water, stormy water, dammed water, and flood water. The condition of the water transmits the message. Still water, clear and reflective, suggests man's emotional nature quieted and capable of reflecting what is above. Turbulent, raging water points to a danger of drowning in emotional self-concern. Water symbolizes terrestrial and natural life, not metaphysical life. There are many different ways of characterizing water which carry secondary meanings. These meanings are not strict but are simply a way of expressing the transmutations of this ever-flowing element. Immersion in water signifies a return to the preformal state, with a sense of death on one hand and of rebirth on the other. The symbolism of baptism is linked to this, with the rebirth of the spiritual man. Secondary symbolisms are also derived from associated objects, such as water containers, baptismal fonts, fish, shells, boats, and rafts. We do not mean to suggest that the symbols which appear in our dreams or in myths, fairy tales, and scriptures all fall neatly and solely into these four categories: fire, earth, air, water. Many symbols partake of two or more. The symbols just listed are offered as a sampling only, as tools with which to start unlocking the hidden meanings. The tree, for example, can be associated with all four elements, and appears as a symbol in the metaphorical language of all the major religions. It stands for inexhaustible life and is therefore equivalent to a symbol of immortality. It is a symbol of absolute reality. The tree, with its roots underground and its branches rising to the sky, symbolizes an upward trend. In this way it is similar to the ladder and the mountain and stands for the general relationship between the three worlds, hell, earth, and heaven. The tree also corresponds to the cross of redemption. With its roots, trunk, sap, branches, and foliage, the tree is an appropriate symbol of oneness and interdependence. It may also be a symbol of man, rooted in the earth and reaching upward, known by his fruits. The tree has been likened to the spinal column, the general root of the life force. These are but a few of the possible analogies involving this highly elusive symbol. Symbols are the natural and universal language of the unconscious mind, a language which the conscious mind can learn to decipher. The mind records in symbols, feeds back symbols in dreams, and responds to symbols at the unconscious level, if not at the conscious level. We very often react symbolically. The things with which we choose to decorate our homes or our persons, not because of styles or fads, but because we are drawn to them innately and intuitively, may be symbols of our past lives. When we take the time to look at these choices objectively, we can learn a lot about ourselves and where we have been. Our accidents and illnesses are often direct translations of symbols we employ in our language and in our thinking. He gives me a pain, translates as the ache of your choice. I can't stomach that, shows up as an ulcer. We start knocking things over, and realize that it is we who are upset. Dr. Sermonara's books, Many Mansions and the World Within, are filled with instances of symbolic karma taken from the cases in the Edgar Cayce readings. One example is a man who in this life is deaf because in a previous incarnation he would not turn his ear to the cries of the persecuted Christians. Another is a photographic model with extraordinarily beautiful hands, the result of having used her hands in service in a previous life. There is much material in the Edgar Cayce life readings that indicates that we ourselves are symbols of everything we have built by our thinking and actions in this life and in previous lives. In order to know our real self, therefore, we need to start examining the patterns we create and the relationships and problems that we draw to us. We can then interpret what is happening in our conscious lives in much the same way as we interpret what lies at the unconscious level, remembering, as without, so within. The ability to make and use symbols is both natural and necessary and is a unique quality of mind. Symbols provide signposts and metaphor and analogy which point the way to the spiritual realm. The symbols we see in our dreams and in our waking, daily lives are regular progress reports as to where the self is on its pilgrimage. A study of the universal symbols shows us that we are not alone in that pilgrimage, that our own story is the story of every man, the story of the prodigal son, the story of man in the earth. Symbols help us to shift our own focus from the world of outer things and reveal to us the real self within. The symbols of the eons remind us that we must learn to know that self, to rise above the material plane and start our spirit on its pilgrimage back to the Father. The symbols that come forth from our own unconscious minds will remind us, too, bringing us beyond sensation to meaningful insight. Symbols constitute a language that is as old as man, a language that conceals and reveals the secret of the self, and its search for its source.